Ever feel like you're doing everything, but losing touch with yourself? Welcome to Well Connected with Dr. Elizabeth Hoefer. This is your space to slow down, tune in, and realign. We'll talk health, relationships, purpose, and the truth behind what it really means to feel whole. Because alignment isn't just for your spine, it's for your life. Let's reconnect. Let's realign. Let's get well connected.
Hi, everybody. Long time no see. In fact, I think this is actually my first podcast where you get to see me. I started a podcast many moons ago, and I took a pretty big hiatus. And I'm excited to be back with the Well Connected podcast with your host, Dr. Elizabeth Hoefer. And I'm excited to just do some cool stuff, share my story, and reinvigorate the passion behind why we do what we do.
So maybe today we're going to talk about why you became a chiropractor. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. I became a chiropractor because I got a job working at Palmer College of Chiropractic part-time in the year 2001, making an incredible $6.19 an hour. Worked at night. My friend's mom, who I continuously give love and adoration to, her name's Kim Hutchison. She was the staff director of the main clinic, and she slipped my application into the pile and said, you should apply for this job. And I worked part-time at the clinic and started to learn and love what chiropractic is. And having grown up in Davenport, Iowa, getting chiropractic care in my life, whether it be for the sports that I played in high school or the little fender benders that I got into as a young adult, being in the clinic as a staff member and having access to watching the miracles occur from the student doctors and the staff clinicians at Palmer College Main Clinic, it was really a curious thing to observe. And I was interested in learning more, and I wanted to know why and how come. And so I enrolled into the associate's program because when I was 21 years old, I didn't have a lot of champions in my life excited to encourage me to do anything higher education. I mean, I had a kid already. I had my first child when I was 19 years old. And I kind of just looked at life like I'm getting by. And so when I started getting regular chiropractic care and I started seeing the miracles that were happening from student doctors at the main clinic in Davenport, Iowa, I was like, gosh, there's got to be something more to this. So I was like, maybe I could just, be the assistant. And I enrolled in the chiropractic technology degree. They offered that at the time. And it was a 2-year program. I was instantly fascinated with all things anatomy and physiology. And halfway through that program, I realized, geez, I want to know more. And I don't want to just be the assistant. I know it's hard to believe, but me taking instruction from someone is a little hard to do. So when I started to recognize how passionate I was about learning about why things work the way they do and connecting it to all the different aspects of the life I was living and the lives of my friends were living, I was like, oh my gosh, I think there's more. So at the behest of some amazing students at the college, they really encouraged me to consider becoming a chiropractor. They said, Liz, you have the gift of gab. And I couldn't disagree. They also said, you just have the passion for this and you believe in this. And so I was like, okay. And I was notably scared of the student loan debt and the boards and all of the things that I saw those students struggling with it at that stage of their career as a student. And at the same time, I had a little girl that I needed to support. And I knew making $16.19 an hour wasn't going to cut it for the rest of my life. So I did the CT program. Halfway through that, I started recognizing I needed to continue my education. So I started taking all of the undergrad classes that you needed to take to qualify to enroll in the Doctor of Chiropractic program. It was a beautiful thing because as I progressed through my education, I really began to become more confident in becoming the doctor that I knew that I could be. And then in November of 2004, I enrolled in the Doctor of Chiropractic program. And I remember looking at the calendar. I know it's weird to think about, but we used to have these things called calendar books. And we would open them up and you would write with a pen on them. Now everything is digital and you just type something into this little computer in our hand. But I circled the date, October 24th, 2008 on that calendar, looking ahead 4 years. And I was like, this is the day I become a doctor. And I had absolutely no idea what was going to come between that day, November 2004 to 2008. But I knew that I had to, do something for me and Lauren. And so the next 4 years were an incredible ride. I had so many ups and downs, but I was so determined to get to that day and walk across that stage as a doctor. And it was a really incredible experience.
So you mentioned before that you had a personal health experience that really changed or really cemented everything for you. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So there's several podcasts out there. In fact, I'm going to shout out my buddy, Dr. Kevin Pekka. He was my first intern. He has an incredible podcast called Expect Miracles. I think that I've been on his show 3 or 4 times, and I tell my story there, but I will give an abbreviated version here. Essentially, I suffered for many years with depression, anxiety, and even to the depths of suicidal ideology. And when I was in my last year of chiropractic school, I was spiraling again. And I think that the mounting pressure of trying to have it figured out and learning how I was going to open a business and practice chiropractic really started to add up for me. And it was, in theory, always an amazing dream and something that was so achievable. But when the rubber hit the road and I had to actually start doing things to make that a reality, I had no skill set and I was freaking out. And so a year before I graduated, I was spiraling back into really, really dark places. And I had a really dear friend, Jackie Newhouse, who at the time was my best support and my best friend in chiropractic school. And she basically gave me an ultimatum and said, if you don't try Blair upper cervical chiropractic, I don't want to hear from you again. And she was kind of serious. I don't think she would have truly cut me off, but she didn't want to hear about my depression and my sadness and my anxiety and my fear, because she just knew that I hadn't tried it all, because I'd grown up in the Quad Cities. I knew what chiropractic was, supposedly. So I was even really skeptical, and I kind of made fun of the upper cervical doctors because they walked around campus with this air of, I know what I'm talking about and I know everything. And actually, the funny thing is they kind of do. And now that I am an upper cervical doctor, I have the confidence too. And it's like, when you know, you know. So if you don't know, you should know. And I got under the Blair upper cervical care at the clinic, and it instantly changed my life. My Blair correction was on October 27th, 2007, literally 1 year before I graduated from chiropractic college. And the correction was so impactful. Instantly, the sounds in the room were clearer. The colors in the room were brighter. And I had this sense of hope that I had literally never experienced in my life. And I knew in that moment that I had to spend the rest of my life talking about Blair, chiropractic, and telling the world that there is hope in this thing called upper cervical. So I immediately enrolled into the elective as a student. And typically by the time you're in 8th trimester, you're pretty set on your technique. You kind of know the direction you're heading. Likely you're a legacy. You've had a grandparent or an uncle or an aunt that has been in practice for 20 years and you're getting ready to walk into an amazing clinic yourself. I didn't have any of that. I had this amazing experience and absolutely no idea what was going to happen. So I took the elective, and it was a pretty remarkable thing. I feel like God kind of downloaded me how to take care of people innately and how to understand these really advanced concepts clearly. Now, what's really interesting is, having practiced now for 18 years, I probably know less now than I thought I knew then, but that's the beauty of maturing and having wisdom, is like, the more you know, the less you know. And I think the confidence and my passion is what fueled me for the first few years. And I'm sure there'll be another time where I can get into all that stuff. But having that correction absolutely was a moment of peripety. And I went from one way to another way. And I am so grateful for that, because it has led me to the most magical experiences in my life. And I always go back to that correction. And that's why I'm so confident when I lay people on the table here in my office. I know without a shadow of a doubt that the correction that we're going to do for them is going to be life-changing. And it's so neat to be able to watch them experience what I experienced too.
What made you decide to go back and get your Diplomat?
Yeah. So the reason why this podcast has been on hiatus for a few years is because I opened Well Connected in May of 2019. And the exact same time, I started this postgraduate Diplomat program called the Diplomat of Craniocervical Junction Procedures. And it was an endeavor to study more in depth this really specific area in our body right here where the head and neck come together. So anything having to do with neurology, physiology, structure, blood flow, cerebral spinal fluid flow, all of that is housed inside this incredible program. We got a bonus year because of COVID, and it was an immense journey of traveling at least one time a month for 3 years. And because we had to take a little pause during COVID, we got to have extended times where we would get together and do discourses online that didn't necessarily count towards our education, but absolutely fed our curiosity and our interest in these subjects. So it was a huge undertaking financially, emotionally, physically. And thankfully, I had the support of my amazing husband and my kids because I was gone a lot. And on top of that, I was growing this clinic Well Connected. And I had already been in practice for 7 years when I started Well Connected. And it was an incredible journey to have these two, I called them my twins, my practice and my education happening at the same time. And as I learned more, my clinical experience got better and my results skyrocketed. So I was all of a sudden really busy in clinic and really busy studying this all the time. So it was the most rewarding professional thing I've ever done is getting that Diplomat. And I now have some of the richest relationships. My best friends are people and doctors that I met in this Diplomat program that don't live anywhere near me, but we stay connected. We have a little group we call the battery killers, and it's because we were always on the phone and our batteries were always dead. So it's a neat thing. I just actually had the occasion to go study with the leading research scientists on cerebral spinal fluid flow this past weekend, and I was with all my Diplomat friends, and it is a program that continues to bless me professionally and personally.
Can you explain to someone how do you explain to someone why the top of the spine matters so much?
Yeah. So with the upper cervical work and why it matters so much is because this area of our body is where it's the most neurologically significant. It's where the brainstem exits our head in this little hole called the foramen magnum at the base of our skull. It's where the atlas and the axis have the least amount of, I don't even know if protection is the right word, but the most movement and the least protection. And it's where everything comes together. So it's what drives everything else. Above, down, inside out. There's this philosophy in chiropractic that talks about from above, down, and then inside out. That's kind of how it goes. Our brains send signals down our spinal cord out to every cell and organ and system. And from those things, it gets sent back up the spinal cord through this neck area and into the brain. So this is like the place where it connects. And so if this is intact, everything's going to work right, in theory. And structurally, I say this all the time, your structure dictates your function. So if this is intact structurally, then you're going to have a lot better chance to have neurological optimization.
What are the most common things people get wrong about chiropractic in general?
Chiropractic is an amazing profession. And a lot of times people who are patients of mine, they're like, you're not even a chiropractor. You're like something different. And I'm proud to be a chiropractor. I'm proud to live by the philosophy that the power that made the body heals the body, this innate intelligence that drives us and allows our body to heal. It's like I tell people all the time, like if you get a paper cut, you don't have to go see a surgeon to have your finger heal. There's this innate wisdom inside of us that sends cells to that little cut. And from the inside out, you get better. And then eventually the scar is gone and you don't even remember you ever had a paper cut. So chiropractic bases itself on that philosophy that our bodies were designed to heal and be whole. And so we get to harness that power and that understanding and that neurology by making sure that the structure is intact, whether it's your spine or your wrist if you have carpal tunnel, whatever it is. And so people get wrong. Even this week, I feel like I was being discriminated against because I'm not a real doctor. Well, I have the student loans to prove that I am a real doctor. And actually, we have licensures and we pass all these tests. So people just don't understand the rigorous amount of education that we actually go through to procure our degree, and the insane amount of testing and the, amount of continuing education that we have to get every single year to obviously keep our clinical skills up and make sure that we're safe. It's a lot. And so I think people get wrong that we're not as educated as we are. I think people get wrong that chiropractic is a luxury, not an essential part of somebody's health. I think I have a bias because I did grow up where chiropractic was founded, and a lot of people where I grew up saw a chiropractor from birth because it was just the thing that you did. I can imagine that if I grew up in a dentist's house, I probably would have flawless gums. I think I do take a little for granted the area in which I grew up and the manner in which I grew up in that way. But it's not a luxury. It's essential. Your nervous system is what dictates everything about your health. And so if we can harness the health of your nervous system by making sure that your spine is in alignment, I think that that's important.
So you talk about your profession now with such passion,
Mm-hmm.
but you also grew up where it was like a given that people knew about chiropractic
Right.
care. Was there any part of you that resented that and wanted to do something else, and something else was your passion before chiropractic care?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about the fact that I didn't really know that chiropractic was a viable career until I started working at the college. The truth is, I wanted to be a Broadway singer, and I was in musical theater, and I danced, and I sang, and I acted, and I know you can't imagine how dramatic I was, but I had this incredible gift of singing, and I wanted to share it with the world, and I had amazing opportunity. Then I got pregnant when I was 18 years old, and everything about that dream changed because I knew I couldn't go to New York as a single mother. I knew that working in that industry wasn't going to be viable and raise a baby. So I kind of let that dream go. But when I look back at it as a big fat nerd, and I understand why I loved singing so much, it was because my vagus nerve needed to be regulated. And one of the ways that your vagus nerve is regulated is by singing and by humming and by making noises. And so I think I've always been addicted to nervous system regulation. I just didn't know it.
So for someone listening who's maybe had a bad experience with chiropractic care before, or who's just on the fence with starting, what do you want to say to them directly?
I want to say that I have a fun story to tell you about that. People who have a bad taste of chiropractic, it's because they just haven't had the right chiropractor take care of them. Everybody has a vibe. Everybody kind of connects with certain people. And maybe getting your neck manipulated isn't your jam. Well, I've got a table for that. And maybe getting manipulated on a table isn't your jam. Well, guess what? I got an instrument for that. There's always an option and a tool or a way to help your nervous system regulate through chiropractic care. And it's such an incredible field. There's so many applications in it. Maybe you just want to do nutrition. Maybe you just want to do breath work. I mean, it's a vast thing because the human experience is vast. I was at a networking event when I was early in my career. In fact, I was pregnant with my middle daughter. So this is 17 years ago. There was a very famous professional baseball player that walked into this event, and we were at this poker event where a very famous poker player was having this tournament to raise money. And I had no idea who the baseball player was. I very barely recognized who the poker player was and the boxer. But I was there because I wanted people to know about Blair Chiropractic, because to me that was more famous and more important. And I think, again, the innocence and the arrogance of my passion has led me and protected me in many ways. But I had the occasion to watch this man walk in, and he was literally standing so crooked. His shoulders were at diabolical opposed angles. And I walked up to him and I was like, hey, I think you should come over and let me measure your posture, because I do this thing in chiropractic where I can get your head on straight and you could stand straight, and I bet you'd improve your game. And he started yelling at me and telling me how ignorant I was and how a chiropractor bleep him up. And I was like, well, no offense, but have you ever gotten a bad haircut? You probably found a different barber. That's what this is. And he's like, I don't want to hear about it. And I go, well, it's your loss. Here's my brochure. You should look me up sometime. My husband was mortified because he was with me, and he was like, do you even know who you were talking to? And I was like, I actually don't even care, because he was rude to me. And he's ignorant on the fact that this thing that we have is such an amazing gift to the world. He just didn't find the right fit. So what I have to say about finding or having a bad experience is that try it again, find your vibe, find your fit, and you will be so grateful because your nervous system deserves to be taken care of.
What do you say to people to get them, I mean, kind of overall, give us your 30-second commercial that you do at a networking event. Like, how do you get people to listen?
Oh man, I haven't done networking events in a while. But yeah, the 30-second elevator pitch is, are you experiencing anything that you don't like in your body? Do you have a headache? Does your back hurt? Are you exhausted at the end of the day? Are you grouchy with your spouse? All of that is determined by how healthy your nervous system is. And what if I could show you a way that we could get your nervous system regulated without having to spend a ton of money, waste a lot of your time, and cost you more than you think it should? And then people are like, what are you talking about? And then I just showed them the picture of a cone beam CT, which is what we take in our office. And they've never seen anything like it. They've never seen their neck in 3D. And for less than $300, you can have this same image taken and I can engineer a specific correction that doesn't twist, pop, or crack your neck. They're like, tell me more. So it's through inviting them into understanding their own physiology and getting rid of their symptoms that makes all the difference. Yeah. So, I mean, are you suffering? Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Do you want to have lasting hope for your health? It's absolutely possible. And all you have to do is reach out to me at Well Connected, and we can show you how we can get your head on straight with no twisting, popping, or cracking and help you live your life in alignment. Welcome back to the Well Connected podcast. Thanks for joining me on this episode. We have so much more to say. And I look forward to meeting you at my next episode where we can continue the story about why chiropractic and why this incredible journey. Click below to subscribe and pass it on to your friends if you're interested in learning more.
Thanks for joining Dr. Hoefer today on Well Connected. We trust something you heard brought you closer to the life you're meant to live. Because alignment isn't just about your spine. It's how you move through the world. So keep listening to your body, trusting your wisdom, and living your life in alignment. And above all, stay well connected.